Good morning, fellow orchid lovers. It's Danielle here with a video about my Tolumnias. So one of my last videos was about orchids that I struggle with, and I highlighted my Tolumnias. I purchased these orchids thinking I was going to be able to keep up with their needs as far as their quick wet dry cycle. I was doing really well there for a while, and they were really happy. If you look at some of my older videos that highlighted my Tolumnias, their growths were nice and chunky and very happy and plump. And unfortunately, due to health issues and things going on in my life, I have sort of neglected them. I have tried several things to try to make them happy, and I have come up with yet another possible solution to why they are not as happy as they should be. I am now writing down every week on my list of things to do to water them regularly. So they were just watered yesterday, and as you can see, their roots are still pretty damp. So I'm not going to water them again today, but I am keeping my eye on them, and when they do dry out, I'm going to give them another drink. But the main change that I came up with for these is I was growing them in these vases with my little glass beads, and that seemed to make them pretty happy. I would keep the water level pretty low in the beads, and the humidity seemed to be working for a time, and then it turned out that the roots started to be unhappy with that, and some of them started to die. So I took them out of the pebbles and was just leaving them in the vase. And again, that didn't seem to make them too happy. So then I mounted them on pieces of oak that I had and kept them in really strong light. They never attached to the mounts. They were on there for a couple of months. And honestly, getting them down every day to water them on the mounts was just too much for me. So I put them back in these vases and kind of just shrugged my shoulders and said, they'll either sink or swim. Well, watching a recent video on YouTube about Tolumnias, it reminded me of where these orchids grow. So, you know, these are all probably hybrids, and they're not like a species, but typically these types of orchids grow in the Caribbean. And they don't grow necessarily on tree trunks, they grow on branches. So they like to attach themselves to something. And indeed, when I had them in the glass beads, the newer roots would attach themselves to the glass beads. So by keeping them just straight in the vase, I was not fulfilling that need for them. And then also too, when I would take the water out of the vase, the roots, because they were so damp, would create a pool in the bottom of the vase, and the roots would stay damp for longer than they should. So this is the solution that I've come up with, and we'll see how it goes. So I'll take this one for instance. This is one of my larger Tolumnias. So as you can see, it's still growing. You know, this is one of its new growths. There's another new growth behind it, but it's never bloomed. The structures have shriveled somewhat. I mean, they're still pretty chunky, but they're not as healthy as, you know, they were in my early days of growing them. They're not completely desiccated, so she's not dying per se, but she's certainly not very happy. So what I did is I went outside to my apple tree and I got a nice chunky branch and I cut sections of it. And I took each Tolumnia and I attached it to the branch. So because these plants typically grow on branches in the wild, like twigs actually, that's what I'm hoping she's gonna attach to. So it's gonna take a few weeks, maybe even a few months for the roots to attach. But as you can see, the branch keeps it off the bottom of the vase. So any residual water that drains off of the plant after I've watered it is not going to affect the roots and make the roots rot. She'll have something to grab onto. And I'm going to put up an additional shelf in my window, my bay window that gets the most light. and put the Tolumnias on it directly so that they will get really, really strong light, the strongest light I can give them. Originally, I did have them on that shelf, but unfortunately, I had to put them way in the front. So every time I had to water them, which was every other day, I had to take everything off that shelf to get to them, and it just wasn't possible for me. So I'm gonna put an additional shelf underneath the lowest shelf and hope my cats don't eat them because we know that they love to do that, and just see if that helps them. So as you can see, I have quite a few. I lost one. I had 2 carnations, Jarrack Flyer carnation, and they were very small plants, and one of them didn't make it. I have the Jarrack Flyer Red Devil. That one also hasn't bloomed. It's actually 2 different plants. Again, you can see it's getting new fans, it's getting new roots, so it's still growing. It's just not doing swimmingly. So I'm going to try to improve the conditions for these plants. This one actually did bloom for me last season. And this one is Jarrack Flyer Firm White. So I was very happy when that happened. These are my 2 oldest ones. This is the Cocoa Drop. She's really good, actually. She grows fan after fan after fan, and they're nice and strong, the growths. But as you can see, the leaves are really green, and when they're really happy, they get like those spots on them, and she doesn't have those. And she's never bloomed, even though she keeps growing fans. The one that I got with her is the Jarrack Flyer Black Magic. She's never really done well. She was this original fan back here, and she started losing her structures really quickly, and I thought I was going to lose her, and then she put out a tiny little pitiful growth, and the growths have been pretty pitiful since then. I mean, as far as, you know, the size of the structure is pretty decent, but they're so flimsy. They're really not as healthy as I would like. So I'm going to try this method and see what happens. It's probably going to take a few months before I'm going to have any results, but I'll definitely share how they're doing with you when there is something to share. I hope you guys are all doing really well. I'm going to try to post next week, but I don't know if I'm going to be able. I have 2 jobs. One, I work at a local hospital for 2 days a week, so I can have my medical benefits. And then I have a second job, and I just got a really big order, so I'm going to be working like mad for the next couple of weeks. So I don't know if I'm going to have time to post, but I'm going to try. So anyways, I hope, again, that you're all doing really well. I'll try to keep in touch through the next couple of weeks, despite, you know, how busy I'm going to be. And I will talk to you all next time.